This was supposed to be a 12-month US dollar index chart from tradingeconomics.com. However, it looks like it turned into a 16-month US dollar index chart, even though I clicked on the 12-month 1-year tab. Anyways, one of the things that you can see from this is that the US dollar index from January 2017 to April 2018 is clearly in a downtrend. So the US dollar index started off over 102, around 103-ish, and it got down to 88 to 89, where it hit support levels and became in a trading range. Now, as you guys know, last month I made another short little video about the dollar index. I'll attach a link to it at the end of this video so you can take a look, talking about if had the US dollar index broken those support levels below the 88 level, there was almost no support until it hit 79. And the dollar index had not been that low since 2013, and the gold price back then was, over 1,500. So it would have been very bullish for gold had the dollar index broken. But the reason I am making this short little video again right now is because the dollar index, as you can see on this 1-year chart, was basically looking like it was trying to put in a bottom. The current price of the dollar index now has rallied. At least it is either a bear market rally, a dead cat bounce, or perhaps it could be signaling that the stock market is due for another major large correction, or there's problems in the European banking system or things along those lines, because the dollar index is starting to strengthen again. It's gone from almost dropping below 88 all the way back up to 91. And if you could see here on this chart on my screen, this is a 1-month chart of the dollar index, and it looks like a double bottom there with a rally, or a cup with a handle and a rally. So we'll have to see how strong and how long this potential dollar rally lasts for. Comment in the comment section below this video what you think about the dollar index and if you think it'll rally. In the short term, anything can happen. If there is a stock market crash, a lot of people will go to cash. So that could be dollar bullish because more people will go to cash. More people may also go to bonds if there is a stock market crash. Although there is a lot of financial professionals out there, and a lot of them are on Eric Townsend's Macro Voices podcast, they think in the near future that stocks and bonds will both have bear markets. So that will be interesting. If both of them crash at the same time, then what is safe? It would be maybe cash and gold, but just something to think about. So long term, though, I'm not bullish on the dollar, but I'm not bullish on any digital debt-based fiat currency. All the major governments, all the major economies are all trying to rapidly devalue their currency. They're all using mercantilist policies of trying to boost their exports by devaluing their currency. So the dollar, as of right now, pick your analogy. It's the best house in a bad neighborhood. It's the cleanest dirty shirt in the laundry basket. It's the fastest horse at the glue factory. There's a ton of analogies for the US dollar. But long term, the dollar has a lot of problems. It is going to be losing, and it already has lost some of the amount of it's used in international trade. The US government also has an enormous amount of unfunded liabilities. If you believe Lawrence Kotlikoff, and I do, I think his numbers are pretty accurate. He says that the unfunded liabilities for Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid are over $200 trillion with a T trillion dollars. In addition to President Trump now running enormously large budget deficits of $1 trillion or more, President Trump did inherit a mess from Obama. The Obama administration was supposed to spend and borrow additional money the last couple of years before Obama left, but he didn't. He delayed it. So even if Hillary Clinton had actually won the election, whoever was taking over after Obama, Trump, or Clinton was going to be a bag holder for borrowing that had been delayed a couple years. So just very interesting, though, that the dollar is rallying. So why do you think the dollar is rallying now? Do you think that means the stock market could potentially crash in the near future and people are going to cash? Why do you think the dollar is rallying? The other things I wanted to mention before I let you guys go on this short video is, if you're curious about the dollar index, I did an article a very long time ago, 8 years ago, almost 8 years ago, in 2010 about the dollar index. I'll put a link to this article here. It's a very old article, but I think it's still prescient, and it basically outlines the problems with the dollar index. And the dollar index in general, it really only measures the US dollar against a handful of other larger currencies. So it's only measuring the US dollar against the euro, the Japanese yen, and the British pound. And there's a couple other currencies in the basket, but they're not really meaningful. So the majority of the currencies the dollar is measured against in the dollar index are those three currencies. And the dollar index does not take into account how the dollar is doing against a lot of other currencies, basically emerging market currencies. So take a look at that article if you have time. It's a really old article though, guys. I haven't updated it. I haven't actually checked my old blog website in a very, very long time. But there's a lot of debate in the financial professional community between hedge fund managers and highly paid investment consultants and people who manage institutional money over what the dollar is going to do. So if you listen to the Macro Voices podcast here, there's a lot of people who Eric Townsend interviews as guests, including Eric Townsend himself, who's a hedge fund manager. I think he's a pretty small hedge fund manager, though. But anyways, I really respect him, and hopefully he'll be back on in the near future. But he thinks the dollar will have a rally in the near future. He's calling it a short squeeze. I wouldn't call it a short squeeze. I would just say that a bunch of foreign governments, foreign corporations have drastically overborrowed in US dollar denominated terms, and can't pay it back, and now they need the dollars. So they should not have borrowed the money. They were thinking only short term. They were myopic, rent-seeking parasites, or they were trying to get rich quick, or they were promising voters, if they were politicians, they were promising voters ridiculous things in order to get votes and win an election or get reelected. It'll be really interesting to see what happens with the dollar. No fiat currency is good. There's still people in the alternative community saying that the dollar could collapse at any time. In fact, if there was a global financial crisis, the dollar may actually temporarily strengthen as people sell out of assets in other markets and people go to cash. That's a realistic scenario because it's happened in 2008 and also in other scenarios. But the dollar is in a long-term downtrend. I showed a long-term US dollar index chart. So the dollar index is in a very long-term downtrend, but that doesn't mean it can't have strong rallies. That doesn't mean that during a financial crisis, it cannot become temporarily strong for a short amount of time, maybe a couple weeks, maybe a couple months, maybe up to a year. But ultimately, President Trump and his Treasury Secretary, Steve Mnuchin, do not want a strong dollar. So you may have Larry Kudlow, who's a talking mouthpiece, and, I really don't respect Larry Kudlow very much, but if you watched his TV show on CNBC, he would go on his TV show all the time and talk about strong growth, how we have to have a pro-growth policies, how we have to have supply-side economics, we should borrow and invest in growth. And then he would talk about strong dollar, which is ridiculous, because if you're doing all those policies, you're not going to have a strong currency. The only time it was able to do that was during Reaganomics. Ronald Reagan was supply side, and the U.S. debt to GDP was way less. In fact, I believe the debt to GDP back then was only about 30% of debt to GDP ratios, and now it's a U.S. debt to GDP, depending upon how you measure it, it's around 100. Wrap up here. This is the one-year chart of the U.S. dollar index. It's clearly in a downtrend. However, we may be having at least a rally. We are having a rally. Comment if you think that this is just a dead cat bounce or a short bear market rally, or comment if you think that this is going to be a more prolonged rally. I don't think, though, that we're going to have a dollar bull market, because if we have a dollar bull market restart to the point where the dollar and the dollar index gets too strong, it's going that debt in dollar denominated debt is going to become so onerous to emerging markets, whether it's foreign governments or foreign corporations or foreign banks that have overborrowed in dollar denominated debt, that a strong dollar would make them go bankrupt quicker. The borrower would be in a lot of trouble if they borrowed in dollars and the dollar became too strong. Okay, anyways, that's it for this short little video. Just wanted to talk about this dollar rally and get your thoughts on it. Bye. Please like this video, share it with friends and family, and don't forget to subscribe to the Wall Street from Main Street YouTube channel if you have not already done so. We're closing in on the 20,000 YouTube channel subscriber milestone, despite YouTube censorship, and hopefully we'll be able to get to 30,000 or even 40,000 YouTube channel subscribers quickly if YouTube doesn't shut down the channel. If YouTube does shut down this channel, remember to also sign up for the Wall Street from Main Street email list that's on the wallstreetfrommainstreet.com website and will tell you where the videos are going to be uploaded instead of YouTube. Also, if you really like the content and you decide that you want to give a one-time donation, you can go to the wallstreetfrommainstreet.com website where there's different options for you to do so. Or you can become a Patreon contributor. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to providing you guys with some of the best information, analysis, and financial education available out there for free or paid.